Hey, good morning, everybody. So you probably know by now, if you watch this channel, that Andrew Bridgen has been expelled from the fake Conservative Party. And to be honest, he's better off out. He's been speaking for a few months now about the harms of experimental injections. And of course, we know in January earlier this year, he was suspended for a tweet where he quoted a doctor as saying that this is the worst thing, the worst crime against humanity since the Holocaust. And he was accused of anti-Semitism, but then it transpired that the doctor he was quoting was actually an Israeli Jew. So it's completely nonsense to say that this was in any way anti-Semitic. It was just a statement of facts. There are significant harms which are now being seen all over the place to do with these things which have been rolled out and were rolled out a couple of years ago. So I've commented on this on social media. Loads of people have written back on Twitter and responded saying, is he going to join the Heritage Party? Well, I can't speak for Andrew Bridgen, of course. I support absolutely what he's saying about injections, and I've been saying this way beforehand from the very beginning, with other brave souls who put their heads up above the parapet from the very start. I mean, I've been speaking against lockdowns from March 2020 and injections even before the first one was administered in December 2020, apparently to someone called William Shakespeare. That's the gentleman's real name, I'm sure. And unfortunately, that person who was the first person to receive one of these things died 6 months later. Sadly, that fate has befallen many people who did the same thing, which is a terrible thing. And we know this is going on. So, just to sort of say more about the question, I mean, I made a video about this actually back in January where people were saying the same thing when Andrew Bridgen was suspended from the Conservative Party. Now he's been expelled from the fake Conservative Party. So people were saying then, oh, is he going to join the Heritage Party? I said, look, well, totally agree on these things. On lockdown, on injections, we totally agree. But the Heritage Party has a full manifesto. So if we're looking for people to represent us, if we're looking for candidates to stand in elections for us, yes, well, that's one of the very important things someone would have to agree with, because we're against lockdowns, we're against coerced medication in any sense, whatever the medication is. The government cannot say to you, or should not have the power to say to you, you must take this into your body, otherwise you won't be allowed to go out of your house, or you'll be quarantined, or you won't be able to work, you'll be thrown out of your job, which is what the fake Conservatives did with care home workers, and they tried to do with nurses and doctors. They tried to throw them out of their jobs. So of course, we would agree on all of those things. But we have, a huge program for government and a manifesto which is out there on our website. So anyone who joins us, and this is in general, would have to agree with the other very important policy points that we are campaigning on all the time and are in our manifesto. So we need to control our borders, and we need to stop illegal immigration across the channel, and the boats full of military-aged men need to be pushed back to France. And we don't need to just stop illegal immigration. We need to very strictly control and drastically reduce what is called legal immigration, because the fake Conservatives for the last 13 years have been opening the doors to everyone with schemes for students, visas for work people, visas for seasonal workers to pick veg. Okay, you need that to some extent, but why are we not training our own young people to do the jobs that need to be done in this country? Why do we need continual open open door immigration. So we need to very, very strict caps on legal immigration as well as stopping illegal immigration. That's a key point. So anyone joining us would have to agree with that. We are against Agenda 2030 and all the climate alarmist nonsense. So anyone joining us would have to get rid of all the carbon capping, carbon trading schemes and stop dismantling our energy infrastructure. We would rebuild our energy infrastructure with a mixture of coal, oil, gas, and small modular nuclear reactors to provide cheap, continuous, reliable energy rather than literally blowing them up, as this government has done with some coal power stations, and then trying to replace them with solar panels on prime agricultural land. So we're not growing any food anymore on those bits of land which have been taken over by solar panels, or wind farms, whether they're onshore or offshore, doesn't matter. They don't produce any energy when the wind's not blowing. So the energy policy is steeped and baked and founded in the nonsense of climate alarmism. We need to just totally get rid of that climate alarmist energy policy and environment policy, which is barking mad, essentially, and just get back to providing energy in a way that we've done for 100 years or more, that provides enough energy for houses to keep the lights on and businesses to keep their factories going, and so on. So that's one thing. You got the second thing. Again, you got to be against this climate alarmist nonsense. We would also be against the war on cars that goes along with it. So we will be against low traffic neighborhoods, so-called, which actually increase traffic congestion on the roads that they funnel everything into, and 15-minute cities, which are just a surveillance future lockdown nightmare that has been created around us, where they want to stop people from traveling freely in their own towns and cities. So we would have to, anyone joining us would have to be against those things there. We need to ensure free speech and freedom of expression. And this is something that the fake Conservatives, along with Labour, Greens, Lib Dems, are involved in, the war on free speech. And there's so many bills that have gone through this Parliament which have curtailed freedom of speech. You've got the public order bill going through. You've got the online safety bill going through. All of these are going to have or create draconian restrictions on people's freedom of speech, both in public and online. And we need a Freedom Act in order to repeal all of these restrictive measures that are trying to curtail people's free speech, to the point where they are trying to make so-called spreading misinformation illegal, whatever that means. I mean, who defines what is misinformation? An opinion that I say, maybe even something I've even said in this very video, could be deemed misinformation by some apparatchik in the government's behavioural psychology unit, and then I'll get a knock on the door by the police taking me away and sticking me in jail for saying something which up to now I've had the freedom of speech to say. This is tyrannical. It is totalitarian, and it needs to be stopped. So anyone joining the Heritage Party, of course, would have to be against this attack on freedom and would have to support a Freedom Act to restore our freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to protest, freedom to trade, freedom not to trade, all of those fundamental freedoms and more that we have from common law, which says that you can do anything you like, providing it does not cause harm injury or damage to another living man or living woman. It's very simple, and that's what we need to get back to in our law, rather than having tens or hundreds of thousands of regulations saying, oh, you must do this, you must do this, you mustn't do this, you mustn't do this, you must do this. You know, the law, okay, I understand you need regulations sometimes and laws to say you mustn't do this. You mustn't murder anybody, of course, that should be a law. But when you have laws that say you must do this, you know, we're getting on to the point now where people are at the point of saying you must affirm somebody's neo-pronouns, which is just made up babble, basically. You know, people put in their bios, my name is, you know, Unicorn Rumble Box, and my pronouns is Zhong. Absolute nonsense, you know. But you're expected to affirm this nonsense, otherwise you're accused of being transphobic or something. I mean, this is where we are. This is how insane our civilization is, and we just have to say, this is absolutely barking mad, and we're not going to have it anymore. And we're certainly not going to have these things in law. So, okay, back to the main point and flow of the video. So anyone joining the Heritage Party, you know, in general terms, would have to agree with that. And then, of course, we are specifically a socially conservative party. We're not a libertarian party. We're not a classic liberal party per se. Foundationally, we would agree with a lot of principles that some of the principles that libertarians and classic liberals would agree with, but we are fundamentally a socially conservative party. So we have three core socially conservative principles that our policies will hang on. Number one, there are two sexes, male and female. There are not 100 genders. Gender is not different to sex. You cannot change your sex. So all of this stuff about, you know, writing transphobia into law, we need to just get rid of it, basically. We need to get rid of all laws which put in place the edifice of hate crime and hate speech. You know, the law should be, yeah, if you incite violence, okay, yeah, that's a crime. But, you know, the hate crime against all these victim groups which have been set up under cultural Marxist ideology, we just need to get rid of those kind of laws. Anyway, that's the first socially conservative principle we have. There are two sexes, not 100 genders. Secondly, marriage is a man and a woman. And no child should be deliberately put in a family without their own mother or father. I mean, what's happening at the moment is the nature of family has been deliberately changed and undermined from the traditional family, which works and which is natural. The very nature of things tells you that the traditional family is the best model of family that there is, and statistics bear that out. So changing the definition of marriage, deliberately trying to change the nature of the traditional family and engineer it into something different, which, you know, could be whatever you want, is wrong. And our position would be to restore the definition of marriage in law as being only a man and a woman, and then we would stop or adoption of children deliberately being given to family types which don't have a married man and woman. That's simple. So that's traditional family values, and that's the core of that. And also, we're a pro-life party. And yesterday was 55 years since the Abortion Act in 1967 came into force. When it came in, even the people that brought it in thought there would only be a few hundred abortions every year. But there's now 230,000 every single year unborn children being killed in these abortion centres around the country. 10 million unborn children have been terminated, if you like to use these euphemistic words, since the act was brought in. 55 years ago, and this is an absolute horror. So we are unashamedly and unequivocally pro-life, and so our policies would be pro-life. And so, of course, anyone who wants to be a national candidate and represent the party nationally would have to agree with all of those things, so, because they'd be representing our manifesto in full. So, going back to the earlier question, of people saying, and I understand the enthusiasm, oh, you should team up with Andrew Bridgen. What he's saying about lockdowns, what he's saying about injections now is absolutely fantastic, and he's speaking out when nobody else in the parliament who's an MP is willing to speak out about. And I know there are others who do agree, but they're too afraid. So, what's the point of being an MP if you're going to sit on your hands, and when your time comes, you're not going to open your mouth, you're going to lose your courage. So Andrew Bridgen has had the courage over the last few months to speak out about these things. I wish some of the others who agree would also do the same. But you're not going to get that. It's not going to happen with the fake Conservatives or Labour or Green or Lib Dems. It's only the Heritage Party that is going to speak out about this. And we have done from the very beginning, and all of the other issues that I've mentioned, against the climate nonsense, against the mass immigration, against the cultural Marxist policies. We need to protect unborn children, and we need to restore our fundamental freedoms and ensure that they are enshrined in law. And those that, in a nutshell, a very, very small nutshell, is what the Heritage Party stands for. Of course, we got a 30-page manifesto, which you can read on our website, heritageparty.org. So there you go. So it's really worthy of note here that Andrew Bridgen has been finally expelled from the Conservative Party. He's better off out. And so, good luck to you, Andrew, as an independent, and I think you'll be far happier being that, and we are building the alternative. So, I've met Andrew Bridgen back in January. He's a really good guy, but I can't say whether he will join the Heritage Party or not. He's his own man. And but we will see what happens in the future. Of course, I will not divulge what happens in private conversations, but that's just to give a little bit of an answer, because I've had literally hundreds of people say, oh, he would be a really good fit with you, and hopefully that answers some of the questions that people have put to me on my various social media platforms over the last 36 hours. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you do like what I've said about our policies and what we do stand for in the Heritage Party, then please come and join us, and consider standing as a candidate yourself to restore our nation. And you can find out all the information, our manifesto, and how to apply to be a candidate at heritageparty.org. Okay, thank you for listening, everyone. God bless you all.